Okay, g'day, it's Mr. D here on the RV Investigator, and I'm in the main office of the Chief Scientist on this voyage, Professor Mike Coffin, and just thought I might introduce him to you, and we'll find out a little bit about what drives him and one of the main reasons why we're actually down here in the southern subantarctic oceans. Right. Oh, well, thank you, Professor Mike Coffin, for having a bit of a chat with our students. One of the questions that just get asked a fair bit about for researchers is what drives you? Why are you doing this sort of work in terms of the Southern Ocean?
Curiosity is the main driver. So there's so many unanswered things about the oceans and the earth that you can look at any part of the earth and there are many unanswered questions. So I happen to look in the oceans, and I happen to look in the Southern Ocean, and I've been working down here for a large part of my career, and there are still unanswered questions. So it's curiosity driven for me.
So your main area is plate tectonics. Is that the main thing that you look at?
I'm interested in large scale volcanism on the seafloor and how that has changed the shape of the seafloor and how it's affected the Earth's environment over time.
Right, so large igneous provinces
Yes.
is one of the things. And so this particular area that we're here down the Kerguelen Plateau, what's the main interest that you have here?
I've had various interests over the few decades I've been working here. The interest in this current voyage is how a plateau that once formed as a much larger feature subsequently split into two pieces, and we're studying the actual physics and geology of that breakup, how those two parts of the plateau, which were once together, they were separated long after they formed together, and we want to understand the processes associated with their breakup and separation.
So is this something to do with mid-ocean ridges, so subduction and formation of new oceanic plate?
Exactly. So Australia and Antarctica were together, and this plateau and another plateau, Broken Ridge, were together until roughly 50 million years ago. And then for some reason they decided to break up, divorce. So mid-ocean ridge separated the two of them, and they've been separating ever since.
So that's a rift sort of started in the middle of some sort of large igneous province or something?
Well, yeah, a rift started between Australia and Antarctica, and then it continued later through the plateau that split the plateau into the Kerguelen Plateau in the south and the Broken Ridge to the north.
Right, okay. So what's the main reason then for us to be here studying this? You know, what is one of the main reasons that you think we've been given funding for this?
There are two major reasons. One is scientific. One is to understand the processes of this rifting, breakup, and separation of the plateau. The other is geopolitical, because Australia owns Heard and McDonald Island, it's entitled under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea to claim undersea territory around those islands. And we're exploring a part of the plateau that's connected physically to those islands, but has not yet been approved by the United Nations to be recommended to fall under Australian jurisdiction.
Right, so part of it is Australia owns the out to the continental shelf, and then we have ownership of Heard Island, but underneath Heard Island is quite a large plateau, undersea plateau, and part of that sort of extending the area that we've got influence on. Is that
That's correct.
Right idea?
So the Kerguelen Plateau, on which Heard and McDonald Island sits, is about a third the size of continental Australia. So it's a large feature. And Australia, under law of the sea, is entitled to claim 2/3 of the plateau. So it's a big bit of real estate, but there's still more that Australia is entitled to claim, and the data and samples that we're collecting will enable Australia to go to the United Nations with a submission and say, we want this additional territory.
Wow. So all the mapping we're doing, so we're mapping underneath the ocean at the moment, adding to the higher resolution picture of the ocean floor, but we're also dredging up rocks. So what do you hope to find when you dredge up some of the rocks from here?
Well, we've already done some dredges, and we've come up with a real melange of materials. So we've got rocks that are associated with continents, metamorphic rocks, and we've got rocks that are associated with oceanic quetch, with their basalts. So we've got those two kinds of rocks, which you generally don't find together.
Right.
And that makes it very intriguing. Did a sliver of a continent, when Australia and Antarctica and Broken Ridge and Kerguelen broke up, were there bits and pieces of continents that somehow got trapped in the middle of the ocean? That's an intriguing possibility. It's been demonstrated elsewhere in the world, and if we can confirm it here, we can say, yes, there is a microcontinent that's part of Williams Ridge, which is part of Kerguelen Plateau.
And part of Broken Ridge,
Yes,
potentially.
if we find continental rocks up there, yes, we can say.
Right. So these you'll be able to find on Google Earth. You'll be able to see underneath the ocean. It's probably even named Broken Ridge, which is off the Western Australian coast, and then the Kerguelen Plateau, which is down towards sub-Antarctic, towards Antarctica. So it might be a good thing to have a look at on your Google Earth program. Thanks very much for that, and we'll ask you some more questions later.